Hi, I'm OK Carter. We're out here at the site of Marrow Bone Spring Park. It's on Arkansas Lane, about the 600 West block. You probably have driven by it, a couple of hundred times, maybe wondered what the heck a Marrow Bone Spring is. Well, we're going to tell you, it is a site of importance to the entire Metroplex, and particularly to Arlington. The little park's 10 acres. We're going to take a walk down to the spring, the Marrow Bone Spring itself. So let's go on down the road, shall we? Hi, I'm OK Carter. We're back now to Arlington Time Capsules. I've come down the little path at Marrow Bone Spring Park, and I'm at the Texas Historical Sign. You should know that Marrow Bone Spring is important for really 3 reasons. One of them is anthropological. In fact, it's on the national list of important anthropological sites. It's also important for historical reasons. It's also an interesting bit of geology. Let's do the anthropological part first, okay? All right, so the reason it's on that national list is because this is a seep spring behind me, Marrow Bone Springs. We'll show you a picture here in a second. It was on the edge of the prairie. This is a place where Indians from all over the great prairies came to hunt buffaloes, and so they would make their hunts. Then they would come to a reliable source of water, this particular place. Now, how does it get the name Marrow Bone? Because according to historian Arista Joyner, the marrow bones were relished by the Indians. They would roast them and then break them up and eat the marrow out of them. And so when you would come to this site, say in 1750 or 1800 or 1825, you would literally see thousands of buffalo marrow bones spread across the ground. So it's an important place. Now, when I show you the picture of the spring, it won't be all that impressive to you, but you got to keep in mind that this is a very reliable source of water, that you can come here if you're 20 miles away and you've got a team of oxen, or you're out of water, or you just need a place to camp. You know there's going to be water here. Okay, so that is the anthropological part of it. Okay, so maybe you will ask yourself, well, how do we know that it's such an important archaeological site? What evidence do we have? Well, they've done digs here in this particular area, and they found evidence of hundreds of campfires. They've found spear points, arrowhead points, and other sort of remnants of a Native American culture. And one of them is something that you can see. You notice that I'm sitting on this very attractive rock here. Also, have you noticed that perhaps that it's got a big pockmark in it? Well, this is where generations of Native Americans would come grind out their corn while the buffalo hunts were coming on. So to pull out a pocket this much probably would take 300-400 years of people grinding away. So that's how they know. So let's go back to that state historical marker, shall we? Hey, so we're back at the sign. So the historical importance. In 1843, the Republic of Texas President Sam Houston, you remember Sam, don't you? Up here, came with the envoy to sign a treaty with a dozen or so Native American tribes. They met right here where I'm standing, where you're watching, and they worked out the deal for the Treaty of Bird's Fort, which essentially opened up the entire Metroplex, or what would become the Metroplex, for future settlement. Sam Houston himself, while he was here for a while, the Indians were late showing up, so he went back to attend to other business, but he left his envoy here. Now, that Treaty of Bird's Fort basically gave the Indians about, $100 worth of various implements, kettles and knives and hatchets and blankets, that sort of thing. Wasn't as good a deal as the one from Manhattan, which was like, what, $24 for the whole island, but still not a bad arrangement. So it opened up this entire area, the future Dallas-Fort Worth area, for settlement. And also one provision of that was that they would open a trading post. This was the first treaty that the Republic of Texas signed with the Indian tribes, and the trading post was the first one opened under this treaty. Now, that trading post it was originally Trading Post 1, but eventually it became a ranger station that was run by Colonel Middleton Tate Johnson to sort of protect the settlers of the area. And the colonel became so enamored of this area that he ended up buying most of what you see around me here. Basically, he created a plantation that sort of runs from modern day Cooper Street to Center to Arkansas to where the Parks Mall is now. He's the father of Tarrant County, buried maybe a couple of hundred yards north of here. Let's take a look at the creek itself, shall we? Well, you might wonder what the creek itself looks like, and this is sort of it. This is the actual spring site. Seeps out of those little, in fact, you can see that little layer of limestone that I talked about earlier there. Some years ago, for our newspaper article, I walked the entire length of Johnson Creek, including this little section here, and I can tell you that there's more poison ivy, more kudzu, and even a little bit of quicksand here and there. This creek could use a little cleanup, but as you know, if you can find a reliable source of water, this is the place to come for thousands of years. Okay, let's talk about the geology of the area. I call this a seep spring. At one time, there were 6 or 7 little small springs like the one behind me between Arkansas Lane and where the Parks Mall is now. To my knowledge, this is the only one that's left because the development has destroyed the rest of them. So what's a seep spring, you might ask? Well, the area in front of me used to be a shallow sea called the Eagle Ford. The area behind me is a hillier, higher terrain called the Eastern Cross Timbers. And most of that higher terrain is covered with kind of sandy soil. But if you go down far enough in the sandy soil, you will come to a hard level of limestone and sandstone. And that sandstone tilts in this direction. And so what happens is it rains to the west of us. The rain percolates down through the sand, stops at the limestone, and then begins following gravity this direction and ends up finally seeping into the creek. So to review that, so now we have 3 things that are significant about Marrow Bone Springs. One of them it is that anthropological site for thousands and thousands of Native Americans, and also kind of the kicking off points west for future settlement, white settlement. And then it is a historical place, 1843. Sam Houston's envoy in the first treaty, and finally it's an interesting geological thing. So next time you get a chance, instead of driving on by on Arkansas Lane, just pull into the little parking lot, walk a couple of hundred yards south, and visit the spring, okay?